Hello, everyone, and welcome to Understanding Hybrid Cloud, How to Securely Connect and Manage Distributed Apps. My name is William Bell, Executive Vice President of Products at phoenixNAP, and today I am joined by an illustrious group of speakers. We have so much to talk about. It's going to be fast-paced, but we're really hoping that everyone can get a real solid understanding of what it could look like for you to execute a deployment of hybrid cloud or multi-cloud applications. I'm joined by John Bacon, Cloud Partner Engineer at Google Cloud, Nick Cristoforo, Networking Specialist Customer Engineer at Google Cloud, Kyle Moretta from Megaport, and Mac from Qwinix Technologies. So many things to talk about, so we're just going to jump right in. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the reasons and challenges that people have when they look at hybrid cloud deployments and what that can do for their organization. We're going to talk a little bit about best practices and how you can actually deploy these applications and workloads securely across multiple cloud providers. We're going to talk specifically about Google Cloud Interconnect, Megaport cloud routers, and Anthos as a kind of distributed microservices management platform, Kubernetes management platform across multiple clouds. And we're actually going to show a nice little demo that ties all this together and then take some Q&A at the end. Like I said, it's going to be fast-paced. Stay with us, and it's going to be fun. So I'm going to launch a poll question real quick. The first one is, what are you looking to gain from today's presentation? We're really trying to get an understanding from the audience what they think that they came here for and what they hope to get out of the presentation. We added a dummy question at the end, so feel free to click on that if you don't want to answer, but I think it's good. So I'll wait just a second, make sure everybody gets their votes in. Come on, let's get it to 50%. All right, perfect. I'm here just for the giveaway. It went from like 50% of the answers down to sub 10%. So if you are just here for the giveaway, we are giving away a $100 Amazon gift card at the end. So make sure you stay tuned, and we will get that going. All right, I'm going to close that poll up. Thank you everyone for kicking that off. I'm going to do one more here just so we can get some more understanding of kind of where you're at from an organization perspective, what kind of industry vertical you're in. Really try to narrow down this presentation to who's here. I expect it to be super heavy information technology. We've got a lot of great technology companies on the phone, and hopefully the stuff that we talk about, though, is going to be applicable to lots of industries. We have tried to keep everything high level, a little bit generic, make sure that everybody gets something out of today's presentation. I can tell you that it's dominant. So we've had almost 50% voted. We've got a huge attendance today, and it's still almost 75% information technology. So, we all know what vertical we're doing well in as a company. So here we go. All right, I'm going to close that down again. Thanks everybody again for voting. We got two more later in the presentation, so just stay tuned for that. All right, right into the content. So why we're all here? Why? From a pNAP perspective, why we think we're all here, right? We're looking at customers trying to understand how they're going to at least start to complete their cloud journey. I'm not sure it's ever completed, but ultimately where they want to go. And what we continue to see every single day, the words hybrid cloud or multi-cloud, and sometimes they mean the same thing to people, sometimes they mean different things to people, are being used all over our customer base, and I'm certain that my co-presenters would say the same thing. What we're seeing is that as people look at transforming their applications and workloads, they're really starting to understand that these things can be portable. Now, does that bring challenges to the table? Yes. Solutions like we're going to talk about today, like Anthos, help with some of those, right? Without kind of locking you into a specific infrastructure architecture or cloud platform. And so, I think that the hybrid workload or hybrid cloud adoption, or multi-cloud adoption, is actually finally achievable. And that's something that I'm not sure we could have said two years ago, a year ago, right? The networking has gotten easier. The simplicity of microservices and management frameworks have gotten better. And we're kind of on the cusp of making this an everyman capability. So I think that's really exciting for everybody that's here today. As you look at some of the surveys that organizations have done, we're seeing huge numbers around this idea of multi-cloud. You know, it does bring challenges. It isn't a panacea. It's not something that's just gonna like solve every problem that you have. But people are working on those problems. That's what I can commit to you. People are working on these difficult problems to help remove some of the complexity of multi-cloud and hybrid cloud and really get to the heart of some of these challenges. So we're going to go right into a lot of conversation about Anthos, multi-cloud networking, hybrid cloud networking. I'm going to come back at the end and finish it off with how phoenixNAP is kind of approaching some of these ideas. And with that, I am going to turn it over to John Bacon from Google Cloud, and he's going to take us away.
Awesome. Thanks, William. And good morning or good afternoon, depending on which part of the country everyone's calling in from. I'm John, and I'm the app mod lead for Google Cloud's partner engineering team. So what that really means is I work with our services partners and consulting partners, helping them and our mutual customers with anything that falls within our app mod portfolio. And that includes containers, CI/CD, and then hybrid and multi-cloud, which we're going to be talking about today. So today, I'm going to give a brief overview of Google Cloud's solution to hybrid and multi-cloud. And we call that Anthos. A couple of things to note before I get started. First, Anthos isn't a single product. It's actually a suite of products. I'm not going to discuss every component today, but I'm going to briefly highlight some of the core components that you'll see a lot of benefit out of. Second, I'm going to try to keep this high level. I might deep dive a little bit every once in a while. However, the key takeaway is how do you get business value out of this solution? If anyone at your company wants a deeper understanding, a more technical discussion later, I'm definitely happy to have a follow-up or connect you with your Google Cloud account team. So most organizations, and I'm assuming most of the people on this call, have either taken the leap to public cloud or at least have some sort of cloud strategy that they're exploring. But we do realize that a lot of workloads still remain on-prem, and they're going to continue to do so for a while. There's a lot of reasons for this. It could be proximity to end users, compliance reasons, or data locality reasons, and so on. So while organizations are building out a cloud strategy, a big component of this is how do I handle hybrid cloud or how do I handle multi-cloud in this strategy? Now, however, there are a lot of challenges that arise when you start to adopt a multi-cloud or hybrid cloud strategy. Security versus agility, this is a big one. Developers want to push code to production very quick. Doesn't matter what the infrastructure is, they just want to move fast. But security teams, they want to ensure the code is safe. The tools used by developers are going to be verified and trusted, and this can obviously slows down the development process. Reliability versus cost. When people think of reliability, they think of adding redundant machines, data protection tools, and other services that will increase cost. And lastly, this is a big one, especially when you're looking at multi-cloud, is portability versus consistency. When I start to run modern applications across different environments like on-prem, GCP, AWS, Azure, I want my application to be portable, but I also want to have a consistent experience. Whether I'm an infrastructure admin, a developer, a security admin, I want to make sure that if I deploy on-prem or in GCP or wherever else, I don't have to make significant changes to my application or to my infrastructure. So how does Anthos help with all of this? So I'll reiterate, it's not a single product, but a suite of products that when together, they give you the benefits that you see on this, this slide. I'm going to briefly discuss the components over the next few slides, and you can see which component does what. But before I do that, here's some high-level benefits. Write once, deploy anywhere. This means that developer doesn't have to build their application differently depending on the environment that's being deployed into. Consistency across environments. So whether I'm that security engineer, the infrastructure admin, or the developer, Anthos is going to provide a consistent set of tooling that I can leverage no matter what environment I'm deploying into. And as I speak about some of the components, you'll see how the rest of these benefits are going to be achieved. Now, before I talk, I keep saying before I talk about the components, but I'm getting there. But before I talk about them, I do like to set the stage. I've already mentioned developers and infrastructure admins, security admins, because each of these components I'm going to talk about have different benefits depending on the role you are within your IT organization. So I think this is important. As I go through some of the topics, I might say this is why a developer likes this, or this is why the infrastructure team sees value from this. And then it's also the last thing I'll mention. It's important to note that Anthos components, for the most part, are built on top of open source products. So this does help with that portability I talked about, and it also helps avoid any vendor lock-in. So you're not really stuck right in one cloud or the other. It makes it a very portable experience. Okay, so what is Anthos and where can I deploy it? So like I mentioned before, it's a suite of components that helps with things like policy management, cluster management, and so on, that can be deployed on-prem, at the edge, or across multiple different clouds. So when I drill down a little bit, you'll see some of these components, which I'm going to discuss briefly over the next few slides. Components are things like Anthos GKE, Anthos Service Mesh, and a few more that you can see here. Also note that we have deployment options for on-prem that can include on top of VMware or bare metal. And we also support running in AWS, and Azure support's coming later this year. There's also something on the right-hand side that says attached clusters. What this means is you can actually connect a non-Google Kubernetes cluster into Anthos to provide a single pane of glass visibility into all my clusters, as well as some additional features. So this is important because if, let's say you're running a large OpenShift environment currently on-prem, or you're using EKS in AWS, and you're bought into Anthos, you think this is the future, and you're not necessarily ready to move every Kubernetes cluster into GKE, you can still connect those back and have one view of all of your clusters and some extra management capabilities from that console or from the Google Cloud CLI. So the next component I'm going to talk about is Anthos, or the first component I'm going to talk about is Anthos GKE. But it's important to really understand what is GKE in the first place and a little of the history behind it. Admittedly, Google was late to the cloud game, but when it comes to Kubernetes, we have the most experience and the most mature offering out there. This is really important because it's no secret that Kubernetes is the de facto standard for container management, but it's also no secret that setting up Kubernetes is extremely difficult and cumbersome. Not only that, it becomes more confusing when you look at things like day two operations, upgrades, monitoring, logging, security operations, and so on. In fact, customers that try to deploy Kubernetes on their own oftentimes give up and fail because they don't have a good plan on how to handle those day two operations. That's why it's important to have a managed version like GKE. GKE assists our customers to make cluster creation easy. It provides advanced cluster management features, things like load balancing and auto scaling, auto upgrades and repairs, as well as logging and monitoring. All of this with very, very little effort from developers or infrastructure teams. Once your code is in a container, you can create a GKE cluster by using the console, the G-Cloud command line, or interface directly with the API. And it's really easy to do this, and it doesn't require someone with an intimate knowledge of Kubernetes. Now, as I mentioned, Anthos is multiple products, and at the core, we have Anthos GKE, which is taking this mature enterprise-ready distribution of Kubernetes we provide to GCP customers and bringing it to your own private data center. Here's what you see in the console. So this shows all of the clusters that I have deployed, including some that say GKE, so those are running in GCP. I have some that say on-prem, so those are in a co-location center or someone's private data center. And there's also some that say GCP. What those are is actually attached clusters. That's an open source Kubernetes cluster running on top of VMs in Google Cloud. So this is just simulating what it would look like if I had a non-Google Kubernetes engine cluster that I connected to my environment. So another component that I'm going to talk about, the second component, is Anthos config management. So imagine that you have one team that deploys a Kubernetes cluster at your business. That team has to worry about things like, how do I enforce policies for that cluster? How do I put security guardrails in place? Which isn't really that difficult for just one cluster. But now imagine that team, they go out and they tell the rest of the IT teams at your company that Kubernetes is amazing, right? And every team wants to use it now. So one team starts using it, then the next team, and so on. So now you have clusters running across your entire company. Some may be on-prem, some in Google Cloud, some in another cloud. And even if they are in the same type of environment, right, it still is very difficult. Imagine you're a fast food restaurant or a retail store that runs Kubernetes in each store, right, to handle inventory, point of sale, or other things, and I have 500 stores. In scenarios like this, how do I ensure that the policies I set are actually enforced? How do I make sure that an IT admin doesn't make a change to a cluster in one of these stores or in a data center somewhere? How do I prevent them from making a change they shouldn't make, or revert back if the change they make, could be harmful to the cluster? Well, the answer to that is config management. Config management allows you to define and enforce policies across Kubernetes deployments. So you have a central Git repository that manages access control policies like RBAC, resource quotas, and namespaces, both on-prem and in the cloud. Config management is declarative, so it's continually checking cluster state. It's applying that desired state to your clusters, and it's enforcing those policies. It also puts security guardrails in place. So as an admin, I need to create a consistent environment that offers security by default for my developers. So I can deploy new environments quickly with the confidence that my desired cluster configuration is going to be applied. Config management also helps maintain control over things like cluster sprawl. So as more and more teams adopt Kubernetes or grow their environments for redundancy or to expand to new geos, or for whatever reason you're adding those clusters, you're going to increase the overhead to managing those separate configurations. And config management alleviates that by delivering a single centralized place for multi-cluster management. Now, the last component I'm going to talk about is Anthos Service Mesh. So if you're not familiar with a service mesh, don't worry. All you really need to know is that a service mesh automates a lot of functionality into your network. And a lot of the benefits you get are things that a developer would typically have to code into their application. But with ASM, the developer doesn't have to worry about any of this. It's done for you. The main three things I like to highlight when talking about a service mesh is observability, operational agility, and policy-driven security. So with observability, ASM monitors things like error rates, latency, saturation, and traffic right out of the box, allowing you to create an SLO based on those metrics. It also builds things like topology graphs, so you can visualize how your services are talking to each other. The second thing is operational agility. So when I deploy an application, developers often need to account for things like, what happens when one service fails, right? Circuit breaking. Is it going to cascade down and impact my other services? How do I handle routing between different applications? What if my application is running on-prem and maybe I want to send traffic to the cloud as part of a Canary rollout, right? Anthos Service Mesh is going to do all of this for you without a developer really having to modify their code or make any changes. It's as simple as updating a YAML file. And finally, policy-driven security. Anthos Service Mesh handles certificate management as well as authorization and authentication between services. It's also going to add MTLS to encrypt traffic. So in the past, everything had an IP. It was easy to say this IP can talk to this IP, but now with these services that are spinning up and spinning down, we need to figure out how do we make sure that there is some control that says this service is allowed to talk to this one or this one isn't allowed to talk to this one. What if someone comes in and does a man-in-the-middle attack and tries to sift my traffic or create a rogue service? Anthos Service Mesh is going to encrypt that traffic, and it's going to keep anyone from creating a separate service that could be malicious. Okay, so we could actually deep dive into each one of these services for hours. Anthos Service Mesh, Config Management, and Anthos GKE, and those are just three things of lots of different products within the Anthos suite. We have products specifically for security, other products for developers like a serverless offering that can go on top of that. But we don't have time for that, so I just wanted to highlight those three main components. The takeaway, though, is when you build out this hybrid or multi-cloud environment, you're going to be faced with multiple different software licenses, an inconsistent experience, and added work for your infrastructure team and your application owners, right? They have to make adjustments for every new environment. Anthos's goal is to make you not have to worry about any of that. And so real quick before I hand it off, some of you might be thinking, hey, I haven't adopted Kubernetes yet. I have legacy applications, right? I have Windows workloads. What about virtual machines? So Anthos has support for managing VMs coming very soon. You can already run Windows containers inside of GKE on GCP, and that support's coming to Anthos on-prem very soon as well. But really, more importantly, how do I get started, right? What if you need help with a modernization effort or installing this? And that's where at Google, we work really closely with strategic partners like Qwinix. Qwinix is one of our top services partners, They have extensive experience with Anthos. And so no matter where your company is in your journey to the cloud, they're definitely someone that can help. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Mac from Qwinix.
All right, thank you so much, John. Before we get going to mine, we're going to do another poll question here real quick. I promise this is the last one. So where are you in your DevOps journey? Let us know how you're doing. And just to let you know, I'm Mac, VP of Professional Services at Qwinix. We are a Google Cloud Platform partner. As a partner, as John was talking about, we bring real leadership in engineering, customer support, and strategy insights to ensure customers have a faster, smoother, smarter journey to the cloud. And that includes hybrid and multi-cloud. So last year, I was named the 26th Google Cloud Certified Fellow in hybrid and multi-cloud computing. That was quite an achievement for me after my years of experience. And a lot of my role really focuses extensively on Anthos and hybrid and multi-cloud. So what we're first talking about is why use a partner at all? Why not just deal with Google? And we have a lot of people ask about that, but really we bring that experience working with customers on a daily basis and dealing with the huge variety of customer problems that we run into, whether it's you're using VMs but it's not VMware, whether you've got old operating systems that need to be upgraded. There's a ton of experience we have in this area. Okay, so some reasons that you really do want to go hybrid. Why adopt a hybrid strategy? So some systems, and we find this with many of our customers, where they are making that cloud journey, but there are some things that hold them back from achieving 100%. And that's not really that uncommon. You'll have physical or hardware licensing keys. We have a customer now that has a piece of software running on their system in their data center, but they have no access to the system. So we have no way of migrating that system easily without working with the vendor, who is not very inclined to do so. So there could be CPU or specific server licensing issues, super low latency requirements, but then having this hybrid environment gives you that dynamic capacity to scale up and down very quickly and automatically. So looking at what Anthos is, as John was talking about, it's made up of a number of different products, and you could look at them as Knative for deployment. JFrog would be kind of an artifact storage. Code repository could be GitLab. You've got Elk for logging and monitoring, and communications control would be Istio. And those are all bundled into this suite of products that make up Anthos. John was talking about containerizing a little bit. So there is one of the aspects of Anthos called Migrate for Anthos. And this allows you to take your set of VMs, and this is one option for a path on your journey, to take this set of VMs you're running today, where you've got a hypervisor, your infrastructure, and then your multiple copies of guest operating systems, and consolidate that down to a container. And this is a product that will automatically take your container, turn it into a Docker image, give you the ability to do day two operations, and deploy into an Anthos cluster. So what you see on the right here is that you've eliminated the multiple copies of your guest operating systems and replaced it with just a single operating system instance, which really gives you the ability to highly increase your density of compute utilization. So this is a tool we use at a density and cost calculator for Migrate. And you can see here, this is a graph of a typical number of 30 CPUs or 30 servers, VMs that you're running today, and how the utilization is really quite low on a lot of these. I just did an analysis for a customer this week where their average CPU utilization over 100 servers was under 7.5%, and it was even lower for memory. So this is a way you can take a lot of these and completely increase your density and turn them into a cluster that's running only 7 CPUs or 7 servers from 30. So it gives you a very good cost-benefit analysis. From the platform persona, we've got Anthos and then all the various aspects. So we've talked about migrate for Anthos, and John talked about the Anthos service mesh a little bit. We've got the Google Container Registry, which is not necessarily an Anthos suite product, but it's used to contain your Docker images. And then you've got Stackdriver or Cloud Operations Center, which does all your monitoring, logging, and metrics. You've got your serverless application for Cloud Run, so you can just deploy containers much more straightforward. You've got, of course, Google's global load balancing capability. And as they've been in the web space for so long, they've got this huge, amazing network of highly reliable and high-speed interconnected points of presence and networks that give you this ability to have global load balancing, and we'll see that in the demo a little bit later. You've got your cloud console, obviously, GCP console. You've got some development and deployment tools, Cloud Build, Cloud Deploy. You've got binary authentication as part of the Anthos suite for container authentication, so making sure that you're only deploying containers that have been properly scanned and signed. And of course, Anthos config management, as John has already talked about. So looking at a more of a developer-focused persona, developers really want to develop code. They want to write their code, and then they want to get it running. So today, that we're going to get it running inside of a container. Where are you going to deploy that container? Kubernetes, obviously. They've been doing this a very long time. Where do you want to run your Kubernetes? GKE. Obviously, Google created Kubernetes. They have, in my opinion, the best runtime orchestration system in GKE. And then now you want to run it in your hybrid or multi-cloud environment. That's where you run on Anthos. And the big benefit here is that no matter whether you're running Anthos on-prem on your VMware or on bare metal, like in phoenixNAP, or in GCP, or in AWS or Azure, it's the same Anthos. So your processes for development, deployment, testing, monitoring are all the same. Security is all the same. You're not having to buy separate tools for where you've deployed your containers. It really reduces the amount of extra overlapping skills and tools you have to buy to manage your system. And looking at it from a network perspective, as John had shown, you've got your control plane, your user clusters. Those clusters can be in Google Cloud, on-prem, other clouds, or even at the edge. Qwinix, we do a lot of work with edge technologies, and it's a really upcoming and fascinating space. And Anthos makes it so much easier to deal with. I've got my big building slide here. When I talk to customers about why use Anthos and really what it is, I talk about how the Golden Gate Bridge here was built upon a foundation. So obviously you've got to have that foundation as any building or software system to really make it all work. And you can run now Anthos again in AWS, in your data center, but it's again still all Anthos, which gives you that single pane of glass and single operations and monitoring footprint. So now that you've built your foundation, you've got your deck, and you can then deploy your applications. Some of the cool things you get from Google specifically are Google BigQuery, which is one of the leading data warehouse and analytics engines in the market. And they've got a product called Omni. Allows you to directly connect right across your Anthos bridge and pull data right from S3 and analyze it in BigQuery. And then say you want to monitor your GameStop stock. So you've got a web app you've built and deployed it in your data center for your operations team to see if they're going to retire or not. Now you've got your Anthos deployed in all your environments. Now you can also deploy your Java applications. And again, it's the same deployment, and you just target different clusters. You can run your Python applications because you're containerized. You can even run your C and C++ applications. So that's a key value point is, again, you've got this common platform to build and deploy on all your different technologies. One more, I'm on my last slide. All right, so the whole point of this is that the hybrid and multi-cloud transformation is a process, and partners like ourselves and Google and Megaport are here to make that easier and simple as possible. With that, I will turn it over to Nick to talk some more about the networking.
Thanks, Mac. All right. So good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending where you are. My name is Nick DeCristofaro. I'm a network specialist with Google Cloud, and I'd like to talk to you guys about Partner Interconnect and how that works as a product within GCP. But first, I'm thrilled to announce the availability of our new Google Cloud Interconnect location at phoenixNAP. It's not yet available in the console today to order through the GCP console, but it should be available hopefully within the next week or two at the beginning of April. But we are ready right now to take pre-orders for interconnects at phoenixNAP. So please get in touch with phoenixNAP after the webinar if you're interested to pre-order a circuit with our interconnect product. So now let's talk about how Partner Interconnect works within GCP. So you can see here on the diagram on the right-hand side, we have the phoenixNAP location where you may host your various on-prem workloads. And here I have depicted two different routing environments, or two routers that are connected across two virtual circuits, which we call VLAN attachments. And these VLAN attachments, as you can see with the middle box, they're connected through a Partner Interconnect service, which is what we offer through GCP, which connects through a partner such as Megaport. In this case, the VLAN attachment is then terminated on a virtual router, which is nothing more than a control plane, BGP control plane speaker within GCP, where these two attachments are terminated and exchanging routes. So on the left-hand side, you can see a project, which is a construct within GCP that hosts your environment with a VPC with various resources, either Kubernetes or compute engine resources or other resources that live in the VPC. And these are exchanging their routes to the phoenixNAP location on-prem. So this is establishing a private connectivity between locations that are hosted within phoenixNAP and an environment within GCP. So here I've depicted the region that's closest in proximity to Phoenix here. And you can see that you have established a private connection between the two. We're also able to offer either a global or regional routing model. So that means that you can actually use the full breadth of Google's global backbone network and access all of Google's global regions through a single location if you wish. So in this case, you have a location from phoenixNAP into GCP and still be able to access other locations, for example, maybe something deployed in US West 3 or US West 2, which are other regions in the US West Coast on GCP. We're also able to offer different levels of SLA depending on the configuration that you've configured within GCP. Lastly, this is also a bandwidth-based subscription, which I'll talk about a little bit further, but you're able to basically provision and subscribe to a bandwidth that's based on your requirements, and you can actually scale up the bandwidth on demand depending on what kind of capacity you need at different times of the day. Now let's talk a little bit about how this works within Anthos. I'm not going to deep dive into some of these components because my colleague John and Mac have discussed these a little bit in detail. But as you can see here, we can see the two locations, phoenixNAP and GCP on the left, and you can see how the interconnect really bridges these two applications together, or these two environments together. Now here we can see how Anthos Service Mesh, which John has mentioned what that actually does, but effectively provides that routing security telemetry between the two environments, right? So you don't have to actually worry about how does my service get from A to B. The Anthos Service Mesh mechanism takes care of that for you and creates that service mesh and is able to effectively establish communication between these two services. But you can see here that this is actually using this interconnect that we just created to actually pass data plane traffic between the two environments. And lastly, we have the Antels configuration management, which provides that, as mentioned before, the single source of truth for your cluster configuration. So this is really keeping it in a set of a form of a Git repository, and this this application or the illustration that we see here is really happens to be on premise, but it could also be hosted in the cloud. So it's just providing you kind of an example of how this works, and it really enforces that that configuration locality in each location. So instead of managing the complexity between the two environments. Now let's talk a bit about the costs from the Partner Interconnect product. So in Partner Interconnect, as you saw from my first slide, the partner itself, in this case, Megaport, they actually own the GCP port. So they're the one who actually connect to our Google infrastructure, and they are effectively providing that communication down to their customers. So the customers themselves build the VLAN attachments via the service provider. So you do this through the console, and you effectively then go through Megaport's console to provision these attachments with a specific concept called a pairing key. The usage is very similar to a dedicated interconnect, as in it is providing an underneath a VLAN attachment that effectively provides that virtual connection to cloud. And the VLAN attachments, as I mentioned, they're actually provisioned on different bandwidth subscription models, and they're also charged on an hourly basis. So you're charged by the hours that you use the VLAN attachments, and also the respective capacity that that you provision. So it can be anywhere from 50 megabits, and it can also go all the way up depending on the type of throughput that's required for your workloads. And a little bit on the technical side for some of the networking folks, this is again a BGP a peer establishment. So effectively BGP being the routing protocol that's used on the internet. This is to establish routing between your on-premise environment, in this case in phoenixNAP, and then in GCP. And we can effectively establish these routing prefixes to allow traffic to flow between the two environments. We also have the MTU settings that you need to set. We support both 1440 or 1550 in terms of MTU. And the eBGP configuration, we do require multi-hop to be configured. Recommended value is 4. And the VLAN attachment can connect really to any metro edge in any region in the same geopolitical region. So that means that we allow the capability of our customers to connect from anywhere in North America, from any physical location in North America to any cloud router in any region in North America. So that gives you that complete control over global routing and being able to establish a connection from anywhere and then route through our global backbone to different regions around the world. So the attachment exists within the continent, but then you can still reach any other regions globally through our network. And with that, I will hand it off to Kyle Moretta from Megaport to speak more about the product.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Nick. How's it going, everyone? Kyle Moretta here from Megaport. So like Nick mentioned with GCP Interconnect, our other cloud providers also have similar offerings that we can leverage. With AWS Direct Connect, Azure has ExpressRoute, OCI has Fast Connect, and of course, GCP has Interconnect. And so not only can we leverage these different offerings from these cloud providers to connect our on-prem to our cloud environments, but with a partner like Megaport, we can tie in these different environments together, leveraging these different private connectivity offerings from these cloud providers. With Megaport, we do already have that network infrastructure in place and laid out, and we do have API integration to all of these cloud providers to help make that connectivity more seamless across our network and across our different deployments. So we'll give this slide just a sec to update. There we go. So with Anthos, it lets you manage your different environments regardless of what infrastructure they're sitting in. With Megaport, we can help tie those different connectivity pieces together and manage all of your networking across those different infrastructures and really laying out the plumbing between all of these different environments where your Anthos deployments might sit. So whether that be data center to data center for either high availability or disaster recovery type deployments, straight hybrid cloud connectivity, maybe you're connecting from an on-prem data center to just one cloud, leveraging those private connectivity models, or maybe you're doing a hybrid multi-cloud play where you're tying in your on-prem resources to not only GCP, but to AWS and Azure and some of the other clouds as well. And branch office enablement. So maybe your branch offices need to tie back in and hit some of those internal services that are running inside your GKE clusters. We can help tie in and bridge the gap between all of these different environments and have your networking almost act as you would with your Anthos management as well. So really managing your network from a more software defined play. So what we're looking at here is a high-level diagram of how that networking might look across your distributed Anthos environment. So in this diagram, we have a deployment sitting in GCP. We have a deployment sitting in phoenixNAP's bare metal cloud offering, BMC for short, and we also have a deployment set up in AWS. And with a partner like Megaport, we're able to deploy a Megaport cloud router to tie in and build out the networking across all of these different environments, leveraging those private connectivity models that we just saw just a minute ago to provide you with a more predictable, better performant path between connecting all of these different environments together. And so what we've actually gone and done behind the scenes, if we set up a demonstration that doesn't look too unlike this diagram with what we have here, essentially with the help of all my awesome co-hosts on this webinar, we set up a Megaport cloud router that we tied in leveraging GCP's Interconnect to tie into our GCP deployment. And we've also built a private connection over to phoenixNAP's BMC environment, where we're also running some on-prem Anthos as well in BMC. And so if we take a look at what's actually deployed inside my Megaport portal, I took a couple screenshots of what we actually have set up live behind the scenes. So we have a Megaport cloud router that's sitting in phoenixNAP's facility that's tied directly into their BMC offering and tied directly into GCP's Interconnect, essentially providing that layer 3 and the routing functionality between our different environments here. Underneath is just a quick screenshot of the route table of what that looks like behind the scenes. And with this, we can deploy this fairly seamlessly and all within a matter of minutes. And so with that, I will hand it back over to Mac for the demo.
Thank you very much, Kyle. Now I'm going to have to, there we go. Hope this is the right screen. It says showing main screen, but I'm not seeing anything. Are you guys able to see my screen?
You're good, Mac. Take it away.
Oh, there we go. Okay, now I see it. All right, great. Real quick, just wanted to show you, this is what it looks like on the Kubernetes GCP side. I've got a number of different clusters here. We've got our McDaniel Cloud pNAP. This is Anthos running on phoenixNAP's bare metal cloud solution. I've got my own bare metal. I've got a GKE autopilot. I've got a GKE on AWS cluster. And what I've done, and this is where that single pane of glass really comes in, is I can go over here and see all my workloads deployed across all my different clusters. And you can see here, I've got a few issues. And this really just gives you a very quick way of saying, well, there's some problems in some of our clusters and how to deal with it. The other thing we did is we deployed an application, the online boutique, both to the Anthos cluster running on pNAP's bare metal, connected via Megaport to Google, and a GKE autopilot cluster. And I customized the footers so that you can see which one we're running on. So here's our online boutique. We can see that we can go buy some cool cameras and add it to the cart. And we can see right down here, we're looking at pNAP's version of this. And all I really have to do is if I go back home and here's the footer, now I've refreshed and we're on GKE. So now I can refresh again, we're on pNAP. And just as quick as that, using the Google Cloud Load Balancer, we're just round robining between the two solutions. And really a use case might be you would do a GeoIP based or a latency based routing where you would go to the closest cluster to you, but you could also do a failover routing where you want to use, for your internal users, you want to use your Anthos running on bare metal in your data center. For your external users, you want to use the GKE version running in the cloud. And maybe if one goes down or has issues, it just automatically fails over. So that's really what I wanted to show for a quick demo, just to show you it actually working. And with that, I'll turn it back over to William.
Awesome. Thanks, Mac. Thank you, everyone, so much for taking the time to walk us through all of this. Hopefully, everybody can see my screen again. We're back to Will. All right, great. So we got that demo done. I want to talk about, you guys have heard all of our presenters talk a little bit about our new phoenixNAP bare metal cloud product. And I wanted to make sure that everybody understood what that actually meant, right? You've been able to get kind of hosted servers in the cloud for a while, right? Bare metal, dedicated servers. You ordered it like you order from Dell or HP, but you get it in a few hours, maybe a couple days, depending on what's going on. What we've tried to do is we've tried to bring the power, the dedicated infrastructure of bare metal, the security that bare metal can provide you, and the flexibility and neutrality of not having, it's an infrastructure platform, not a platform as a service, it's just the infrastructure. And you can do traditional apps, you can do microservices, you can do whatever you want, and you can build the bare metal now the same way that you would build a virtual machine in GCP, a virtual machine in AWS, using all of the infrastructure's code tools, CI/CD pipelines. We've got plugins and integrations for everything. And it's most of the instances are delivered in under 60 seconds. It feels like a virtual machine, except it's physical metal and it's yours, right? And I think that it brings a lot of power to organizations that are looking to kind of take that next step, maybe heavily mix traditional environments, multi-cloud environments, Anthos on bare metal sitting right next to Oracle RAC installation or SAP HANA installation. Like, there's so many cool things that you can do with a platform like this. So we're super excited about it. Automation, speed, performance, and cost efficiency. A lot of people think that bare metal is going to be expensive, but ultimately what they find out is that especially as you scale out, we are able to do a lot of things to deliver you a lot more horsepower for a much lower cost than you would probably think it would be. So I urge everybody to kind of take a look at what that looks like for their organization, and especially for those applications that have specific needs. Like I said, maybe it's HPC, maybe it is AI, ML type stuff. Take a look at bare metal cloud, because it really can change your way of thinking about some of your applications and how they fit in the world. We're working as fast as we can to deploy this. We're delivering services today in 16 data centers. We have 4 bare metal cloud nodes online in Singapore, Amsterdam, Phoenix, and Ashburn. We're bringing Seattle and Chicago up in the next month. We're trying to do 1 location a month past that. So this is going fast and furious. I think ultimately what we're seeing is that people are looking at all of us, everyone on the call, as the future of multi-cloud. And we're all in this together. You heard from partners, you heard from essentially interconnect providers / carriers, you heard from public cloud providers. Everybody's working together to make this easier for your organization, to get you exactly what you need for your business, to make it available and performant, right? And secure. I think that's the last one, secure, right? So ultimately, it takes a village to some extent. So I'm gonna throw in the last poll question. Our marketing friends wanted us to jump it in here. If anybody saw anything today that they want to talk more about, we're going to work behind the scenes to make sure we put the right person. If you want to talk to the guys at Google, we'll put you in front of the Google people. If you want to talk to Qwinix, we'll put you in front of Qwinix, right? So if anything, you saw something that made sense to your organization, smash the A button, and we will make sure and take care of that. All right, give it just a few more seconds here. Make sure we record all these so we don't contact anybody that doesn't want to be contacted, and go from there. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and shut that down. Thank you everybody for responding. I know these polls can be kind of a bear, you don't really want to, you want to listen, you don't want to interact that much, but I want to move into questions. So get the questions in. We talked about so much stuff. We only have a little bit of time, but if anybody has something, we don't get to your question, we will absolutely go ahead and reach out directly and answer it for you. The presentation will be distributed as a recording. The PowerPoints, I think, are in the handout section, I believe. Maybe not, but we'll distribute them afterwards. There are some good handouts in there. If you want to learn more about Megaport, Google Anthos, Bare Metal Cloud, there's a bunch of stuff in there for you to kind of take a look at there. And with that, let's see here. Let's see if we got anybody that has any burning questions that they wanted to toss in. I know we covered a lot. I'm sure a lot of people little bit of drinking from the fire hose, but we wanted to make sure that everyone got something from this webinar that made sense for their organization. I think that the things that we talked about as a group today matter to the organizations on the call and to the organizations around the globe. So, you know, I have got a lot of cool thank yous coming in. Thanks everybody for kind of pounding in the thank yous. I hope everyone has a great day. Everyone stay safe. And I look forward to talking to you with our teams at the next webinar. Thank you so much. Have a great day.